was the last time you stepped into a Guess store? Decades ago, this brand was everywhere, synonymous with luxury denim, provocative marketing, and Hollywood-level glamour. In the 80s and 90s, wearing a Guess logo meant status, confidence, and a touch of rebellion. But today, it feels like just another fading mall brand, struggling to stay relevant in a rapidly changing fashion world. So what happened? How did a brand that once defined an era fall into obscurity? Was it overexpansion? Poor business decisions? Changing consumer tastes? Or did internal conflicts and scandals accelerate its decline? Before we get into Guess' downfall, we need to see just how powerful it once was. A brand that didn't just sell fashion but defined an era. It all started in 1981 when four brothers from France, Georges, Maurice, Armand, and Paul Marciano, came to Los Angeles with a vision to turn denim from workwear into high fashion. At the time, jeans were still seen as rugged and practical, but the Marcianos had a different idea. They introduced stone-washed denim, softer, lighter, and more form-fitting than anything on the market. Their first design, the Maryland jean, was unlike anything before it. So tight, it required 3 zippers just to fit properly. The gamble paid off. When Bloomingdale's agreed to stock a small batch, they sold out within hours. It was clear, Guess had struck gold. But denim alone wasn't what made Guess a household name. It was Paul Marciano's genius marketing that took the brand to another level. "I wanted Guess to be more than just jeans. I wanted it to be a dream, a lifestyle, a fantasy," Paul once said. And that's exactly what he created. Guess's black and white ad campaigns became legendary, featuring unknown models who would later become superstars: Claudia Schiffer, Naomi Campbell, and Anna Nicole Smith. The images were sultry, provocative, yet undeniably elegant, capturing a mix of old Hollywood glamour and European sophistication. It was sex appeal, but with class, a formula that worked brilliantly. By the late 80s and 90s, Guess had expanded beyond denim, launching apparel, handbags, accessories, and fragrances. The logo itself became a status symbol. Owning a Guess t-shirt or a pair of jeans meant you had style, confidence, and a bit of rebellion. Celebrities, from Drew Barrymore to Madonna, were seen wearing Guess, solidifying its grip on pop culture. As demand skyrocketed, so did the Marcianos' empire. By 2007, Guess was worth billions, its stock hitting an all-time high of $57.20 per share. The company had over 1,300 stores worldwide, dominating both luxury and mainstream retail. But as history has shown, when a brand rises too fast, the fall is often just as dramatic. At its peak, Guess seemed unstoppable, a global fashion powerhouse with stores in every major city and a name that symbolized style and status. But beneath the surface, cracks were already forming. The first major blow came from within. The Marciano brothers, once a united front, began to fall apart. Georges Marciano, one of the original visionaries behind Guess's designs, wanted to take the brand into more affordable retail spaces, like JCPenney. His brothers strongly opposed the move, fearing it would dilute the brand's exclusivity. The internal battle split the company into factions, and in 1993, Georges left the brand entirely, selling his stake to his brothers. But this wasn't just about sibling rivalry. It marked the beginning of disjointed leadership that would plague Guess for years. Maurice and Paul remained at the helm, but as time went on, they struggled to adapt to an evolving fashion landscape. By the early 2010s, fast fashion had taken over. Brands like Zara, H&M, and Forever 21 offered trend-driven styles at lightning speed, often at a fraction of Guess's prices. Meanwhile, the rise of athleisure meant that consumers were swapping denim for leggings, joggers, and sneakers. Guess's signature tight, sexy jeans started to feel outdated. Retail analysts warned that Guess was falling behind, but the brand was slow to respond. "You need new management, some new blood," said an analyst, pointing out that the company was stuck in the past. Instead of evolving, Guess doubled down on its old formula: tight jeans, flashy logos, and the same sultry advertising. And then, there was the overexpansion problem. Throughout the 2000s, Guess aggressively expanded its retail presence, introducing new store formats that were meant to capture different segments of the market. The company launched G by Guess, a more affordable sub-brand designed to attract younger shoppers looking for trend-driven fashion at a lower price point. At the same time, it moved in the opposite direction with Marciano stores, a high-end boutique concept that aimed to position Guess in the premium fashion space. Alongside these new ventures, Guess continued to roll out large flagship stores worldwide, particularly in Europe and Asia, in an attempt to strengthen its international dominance. At first, it looked like smart growth. But as consumer habits shifted toward online shopping, many of these stores became unprofitable money pits. Guess found itself with too many locations and dwindling foot traffic. Wholesale, once a huge revenue stream, also took a hit. Retailers began canceling orders, leaving Guess with excess inventory that it had to heavily discount, further damaging its once premium image. By the mid-2010s, the numbers painted a grim picture. Guess's sales had declined for 3 consecutive years, profits had plummeted, and its stock price was down 65% from its peak. The writing was on the wall. Guess was no longer the trendsetter. It was the brand, desperately trying to keep up. And just when things couldn't get worse, controversy struck. For decades, Guess had been built on glamour, seduction, and power. But beneath the glossy advertising and high-fashion image, cracks were forming. The most damaging scandal hit in 2018 when Paul Marciano, the company's co-founder and longtime creative force, was accused of sexual misconduct. Supermodel Kate Upton was among several women who spoke out, alleging that Marciano had abused his position to harass and manipulate young models. The backlash was swift. Guess launched an internal investigation, and though Marciano initially denied the claims, the company ultimately announced his resignation as executive chairman. But this wasn't a clean break. He was allowed to remain in the company as chief creative officer, continuing to influence the brand despite the scandal. This decision sparked public outrage. While other companies were cutting ties with problematic figures in the wake of the Me Too movement, Guess's attempt to keep Marciano on board damaged its reputation. The controversy alienated younger consumers, many of whom were increasingly prioritizing ethical fashion and transparency. It was no longer just about what a brand sold. It was about what it stood for. And for many, Guess no longer aligned with modern values. But this wasn't the only controversy surrounding the brand. Guess had long been embroiled in legal battles over intellectual property. Over the years, Gucci and Louis Vuitton had both sued Guess for allegedly copying their designs, accusations that made the brand look less like a fashion innovator and more like a company riding on the coattails of luxury labels. While some lawsuits ended in costly settlements, the damage was already done. Guess's reputation as a trendsetter had been replaced by whispers of unoriginality. Beyond the lawsuits, Guess also had a troubled history with labor practices. Reports dating back to the early 1990s accused the company of operating sweatshops in Los Angeles, where workers allegedly faced poor wages and working conditions. Though Guess denied the claims and promised reforms, the accusations resurfaced in later years, with the brand facing renewed scrutiny over its supply chain and possible ties to forced labor. In an era where brands were under pressure to adopt sustainable and ethical practices, Guess appeared outdated and disconnected. Meanwhile, the brand itself was losing its identity. Once known for aspirational fashion, Guess became increasingly oversaturated with its own logo, relying on heavily branded designs and discounted merchandise to attract shoppers. But rather than building exclusivity, this overexposure cheapened the brand, making it feel like a relic of the past rather than a leader in the fashion industry. And the financial impact was undeniable. By 2023, Guess was struggling in its biggest market, North America. Sales had plummeted, forcing the company to shrink its retail footprint and close underperforming stores. Wholesale accounts, once a key source of revenue, were pulling out, leaving Guess with excess inventory that had to be heavily discounted. The company's stock fell 25.8% in just 3 months, underperforming compared to its competitors. The brand that once defined fashion trends was now fighting to stay relevant. Consumers had moved on, favoring brands that embraced innovation, sustainability, and digital engagement. 3 areas where Guess was struggling to keep up. As the dust settled, the question became clear. Was there still a way back for Guess? Or was this the beginning of the end? Despite its controversies, declining sales, and fading relevance, Guess refused to go down without a fight. While the brand had lost much of its prestige, it still had a global presence, a strong name recognition, and a dedicated fan base in international markets. The challenge was clear. Guess had to reinvent itself before it became completely irrelevant. One of the company's first steps was focusing on its strongest performing regions. While sales in North America were struggling, Guess found growth in Europe and Asia. The brand reported an 8% increase in European revenue and a 22% jump in Asia, proving that it still had global appeal, even if it was losing ground in the US market. To adapt, Guess also started shifting its business strategy. Under CEO Carlos Alberini, who returned to the company in 2019, Guess set out to elevate its brand. This meant moving away from excessive discounts, improving product quality, and refining its image to better compete in the premium fashion space. Alberini was confident in the company's ability to turn things around, stating, "Our strong performance this year gives us confidence for the future. We have a clear strategy, and our teams are executing well." Part of this new strategy included cutting underperforming stores and investing in digital growth. The company reduced its physical store count while expanding its e-commerce and wholesale business. In Europe, online sales saw a 16% increase, proving that consumers still had interest in Guess, just not necessarily in its traditional retail format. In an effort to stay relevant, Guess also turned to celebrity partnerships and brand acquisitions. One of its biggest moves was acquiring Rag & Bone, a contemporary fashion label known for its minimalist aesthetic and modern appeal. This was a strategic play to diversify Guess's portfolio, signaling that the company was looking beyond its legacy, logo-heavy designs. But was it enough? Despite these attempts at reinvention, Guess still faces significant hurdles. The brand image problem remains. Younger consumers don't associate Guess with high fashion anymore, and in an industry dominated by fast fashion, luxury powerhouses, and digitally native brands, its identity remains unclear. Financially, while Guess has shown some stability, it hasn't fully regained its dominance. Sales remain inconsistent, and with ongoing economic pressures, the company continues to face challenges in maintaining profitability. The fashion world has no shortage of comeback stories. Brands like Coach, Tommy Hilfiger, and Balmain have reinvented themselves successfully. But for Guess, the road to redemption is uncertain. The company may never return to the cultural powerhouse it once was, but with the right moves, it could at least secure its place as a relevant player in the modern fashion landscape. But will Guess be able to pull off a true revival, or is its golden era already behind it? Only time will tell whether the brand can reclaim its place in the fashion world or fade into nostalgia. What do you think? Is Guess on the path to a comeback, or is it destined to remain a relic of the past? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.